Hello, friends. Happy Labor Day to you. So, as is usual, for Labor Day weekend, I'm an artist, so I'm laboring. Hi, my name's Dan. This is Daily Art Adventure number 699. Woohoo! Just one away from a milestone, 700. All right, so I am doing a portrait of these precious little boys who evidently are no longer little, because one of them's getting married next week. There's actual size. The other one, I'm sorry, is his best man, and he is giving this portrait as a gift to his brother. Isn't that precious? So let's talk about the way, at least one way to do portraits, okay? Now, as you can see, I am working, hello Heather. I'm working from a photograph. So I've already lost all the snob factor. The snobs will not let me in their club, because I'm working from a photograph and not from life. This is one of the differences between people who do art for money, and those who do it for a hobby. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of, I'm sure, very famous artists who do really expensive portraits from life for lots of good money. But for a lot of us, myself included, if I want to do a portrait, it's going to be very often from a client who has a photograph. So I can either be a snob, turn up my nose, and not do it, or I can be practical and take the job. So you can see. Now, let me tell you about the way I think when I'm doing a portrait. First of all, doing it from a photograph is already cheating, quote unquote, to a degree. Now, and boy, I'm losing sound. Is this broadcast as spotty as it sounds to me? Am I breaking up a lot? I'm going to do that, Heather. Am I breaking up? It sounds to me like we're breaking up very badly. Is that true? Can somebody tell me? I actually had some difficulty logging in today. I broke up a little. Barbara says it sounds good. Okay. Well, let's talk about cheating, shall we? First, the fact that I'm working from a photograph is a form of cheating. But it's a pretty mild cheat. And I'm going to do this portrait Oh, all right, maybe I'm back. You guys, I'm desperately sorry about that. As you saw, I'm afraid that my meter seems to be malfunctioning, completely unable to connect to the satellite hotspot, which is how it functions normally. All right, so I'm going to try to talk anyway, and I seem to be breaking up already. Oh no, it can't be this bad. I'm losing. All right, let's talk seriously about cheating. Now, every time I say this, every time I use the word cheat, I'm just going to be real blunt here because I want to be a good teacher. Every time I use the word cheat, I trigger a whole bunch of people. And basically they say things like, it's not cheating. Okay, listen, I want to be a good teacher. This is my broadcast. We go by my definitions, okay? Let me define cheating for you. Cheating is using any whatsoever and mechanical, artificial means. The only thing that is truly not cheating is you have a live model, not a photograph. So a photograph is already a cheat, you understand? Cheat goes by degrees, from a real mild cheat to an extreme cheat. The only thing that's completely no cheat is you have a live model in front of you and you have a canvas and you paint on the canvas looking at the model, okay? Everything after that becomes a cheat. So a photograph is a cheat, but my definition, don't get triggered. I'm trying to make you a better artist. I'm being a little bit ornery, aren't I? I'm ornery probably because my broadcast is not working very well. But more than that, I want you to be a better artist. So stop saying to me, oh, it's not cheating. No, any artificial means is what I call cheating. Now, what you're trying to say, I'm going to say now in my words, all cheating is legal. I've said this so many times, but again, every time I do this, I trigger somebody. I don't think it's cheating. You start your own broadcast, you're not a very good teacher. Oh, I'm broken up again. There we go. All right. Start your own broadcast, use your own definitions. Here's why I call it a cheat. Anyway, all cheating is legal, but, and you regulars, you know what comes next. All cheating is legal, and many of the great masters throughout history did it. But every time you cheat, your brain shrinks. Okay? In that case, then, how do I personally, Dan Nelson, work? The answer is by first of all, trying to do as little cheating as possible. I'm already doing some because they're not a live model, it's a photograph. Okay, so that's cheat number one. Cheat number two is that this print over here is actually the actual size. So that's a significant cheat because it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Now again, that's a pretty mild cheat. You understand? Cheating comes in degrees. The most extreme is, you know, tracing to the nth degree, whatever. And again, it's legal. Just remember, when you're doing it, your skills deteriorate. That's all. So here's what I do, and that's what I'm doing here. So I start out by cheating as little as possible. Why? Because then my brain is growing. Got it? My skills are increasing because I'm working hard. My brain is working very hard trying to capture these little faces doing nothing but looking, all right? Now, because this is a money, it has to be perfect. I can't deliver a painting to them next weekend that's close. It has to be all right. Are we back? So the way I have worked over the years is I start out, as you see me doing here, not cheating very much. I will increase my cheat factor. Here's mild cheating, here's extreme. I'll go all the way to extreme if I need to, but at the beginning process, I'm going to start way down here where it's barely cheating, okay? So that way, I accomplish both objectives. I get a perfectly accurate portrait because I'll cheat as much as I need to, but I'm also growing my brain, my skills, because I'm trying to do it without cheating, okay? And as an added bonus benefit, because I start out not cheating and then add cheats as I go, I get the added benefit of discovering where I tend to make my mistakes. And that is a very valuable thing to learn. Now I've got a huge mistake already on this canvas somewhere, because these shoulders are not overlapping correctly at all. I sure hope that I've printed all these things out. I hope I didn't make a mistake in I'll proceed for a little while anyway. First adjustment, I think this boy's eyes are just a little too far apart. Let me tell you about the canvas that I'm working on. I first did a glaze in acrylics so that it would dry very quickly. And then I did on top of that another transparent glaze in oil. So I'm working on a slightly tacky surface. And good, there's another correction. This edge of his face is too far over, I believe. This is what I call my fast oil painting technique, where I draw, as you see me doing here, oil into oil, wet into wet, because, and it's the easiest possible way to do an. All right, I do seem to be broadcasting again. So sorry for all of that trouble. And I'm already tired of not cheating. So I'm going to do my first cheat. Here's what it is. I'm going to use this set of dividers. And I'm going to start measuring. First of all, let's see. Oh, doggone it. Let's not start. Let's start with the center eyes to eyes. Oh, man. I was afraid of that. So I've got this entire head is too large. Now I can do one of two things, one of which is I'm tempted to do. Just take a rag and wipe out the whole thing and start over. Not quite going to do that, but I'm nearly going to do that. I'm going to wipe out his eyes. And we'll start there and then move outward from there. So how far apart are his eyes really? Wow. Then how far down from that line is the tip of his nose? Wow, right there. Ouch. So this is painful. I'm a little sorry that I spent so much time. And I'll tell you, I don't have any proof that I'm broadcasting yet until I see a chat from one of you guys. That looks hilarious. All right, this is driving me absolutely crazy, so let's fix this. So the width of his head. So basically, and this is the easiest mistake to make, I think, is a mistake of scale. Let's go from his eyes to the bottom of his chin. At least I'm consistent. Oh boy. Oh, that's painful. By the way, I've discovered from doing wedding portraits, which usually entails, doing two portraits on a one canvas, that this very mistake, doing a portrait with two people in it is not twice as difficult as doing a portrait with one person, in my opinion. And of course, at the moment, I'm just sounding like I'm a got sour grapes complainer, but for the simple reason that if you have two faces on the canvas, in the scene, in the portrait, then you have to have them right size relation to each other. And that's far more difficult than having one portrait correctly proportioned within itself. So that's what I had. I'm still driving myself crazy. So now he's got this great big bouffant here. Let's fix that real quickly. Okay, so down about 1/4 of an inch. All right, hello, Uncle Six. Yeah, twice the money, right? Which is precisely what I'm not being paid for this one. I'm not complaining. This is part of a package deal, and my clients are being quite generous by buying 2 wedding paintings plus this portrait. So they're getting a real deal on this portrait because they are paying me quite fairly for the rest of the work. Wow, all right. So part of me wishes I hadn't spent so much time working on that portrait before I started doing some checks. There you go. That's what happened. Okay, let's try ear tip to ear tip. See how far that is. So I'm still drawing too big. And of course, I don't have a likeness at all at the moment. I'm just trying to get the scale correct. Okay, let me go back to, so I'm disappointed I spent so much time on. The answer is, I just worked hard. I just exercised my brain quite vigorously. So I'm not really sorry that I did that, because, you know, I get the benefit of the hard workout. Unfortunately, I don't get the benefit of accomplishing a decent portrait as a result of that hard workout, because it was all too large. There. Hello, Uncle 60. Thanks for the chat, man. So that lets me know at least that we're working. Good to have you again here, Ratio. Happy Labor Day to everybody in America. All you non-Americans, happy working day to you. What would the difference be? Labor Day is the most strange of holidays, in my opinion. I'm not sure where it came from. Is that a FDR thing? Was it us trying to prove to Karl Marx that we actually liked our labor force? I don't know. Maybe. Okay, now, whew, my brain is already feeling the effect of that workout, that sprint, if you will. Wind sprints for the brain. There, that's what portraits are. Wind sprints for the brain. I talked earlier about the disadvantages of flash photography. And every single facial feature in this photograph is damaged by flash photography. I actually wonder how people 200 years ago, before the invention of photography, I think people with discerning eyes, with a discerning eye, would look at a flash photograph and truly would scratch their heads like, what in the world? People never look like this. Okay, so that's a good way to put it. Why don't I like flash photography? The answer is simple. Because people never look like this. Only in flash photography do they look like this. Now, we've gotten used to it. But now when you're trying to do a painting of it, the offness of it, the wrongness of it, immediately becomes apparent, at least to the artist. The highlight in the eye should not be there. The highlight in the nose should not be lip. There should not be a highlight there. See, there's that highlights right down. Boom, 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 boom. terrible. There should be, and the ears, look at the ears are just as far forward as the front of the face because of the flash. See, that's all flash photography on those ears. And there's no shadow. There's no shadows. There's this very artificial, much too hard shadow underneath his nose, completely artificial, and underneath his eyebrows, this lighted area, especially where the eyebrow disappears completely. But then you could say, a beginner would say, well, why don't you just, by the way, the face that I've got on here now is just absolutely atrocious. So, yikes! I've got to get this fixed. It's driving me crazy. Why don't you paint it right then? Why don't you just correct it in the paint? And forgive me. Either that is what a consummate genius would do, one of those crazy, I say that with great affection and envy, one of those crazy guys in Manhattan, one of those crazy Chinese men, maybe are good enough to do that. But my friend, you and I are certainly not good enough to do that. And by you and I mean Nelson Shanks, what's his name, Green, Everett Kinsler, who just passed away this year, by the way. None of them are good enough to do that either. So anyway, I'm not putting myself down. No, I said no. Anyway, when you start making things up, when you start then you are in fact making up the face as well. This is the voice of experience talking. In fact, one in particular, I received a really nice big portrait commission nearly 20 years ago. And I took photographs of, oh, this is horrible. I took photographs of 4 children, 3 girls and a boy, siblings in one family. And the 3 girls, their photographs were fine. The boy, his photograph was not fine. So the parents and I started going back. This was in days of, for me, abject ignorance. I would no more enter into this kind of thing today than jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. No. So they started passing me photographs, saying, "Well, try putting this photograph on his head," and the light, of course, was completely wrong. Didn't match, right? So I tried to artificially imitate, let's just say 40 hours later of frustrating, irritating, pulling out my hair, trying to render this kid, the boy in the painting with 3 sisters. I just finally said, you know what? I need to come and retake the photographs. So I did that and set up the scene just the way I did originally with the 3 sisters. The same light. I didn't invite the sisters. What I'm trying to say is got the lighting all the same, and this time made sure he was making an appropriate face. Anyway, that was the original problem. He was hot dogging it, and I didn't know him well enough. Probably a photographer would have caught this. A professional would have caught this, but he was making a hot dog face like a 14-year-old boy would, trying to look like a 17-year-old boy, if you will. Anyway, you cannot start making stuff up, and then, in other words, like, you cannot add shadows to this and hope to capture a perfect light. I mean, you can hope, and accidents will happen. And yeah, Uncle 60, I see your comment there. In fact, don't tell anybody again. I don't want to irritate my client. But I proposed a 16 by 20 for a certain price, and they came back and said they wanted a smaller painting and a smaller price. So I kind of went gulp. Yeah, because here I am again, once again, like my wedding paintings, here I am once again doing this painfully small portrait. And portraits get basically more difficult the smaller they get. So yeah, you're exactly correct. I am not, have not been relishing doing this portrait this size. All right, my stream seems to be working better. I switched Wi-Fi, switched to a different, what's the word I'm looking for, channel. And we do see, now, once again, I have a possibly passable boy, although it's not by any means perfect. Where it's just about to the point where I need to start cheating again, because I do not have a likeness. I hate to sound like a complainer. I hate to be a complainer. This photograph system is not working as well as I would like, because I'm getting so much reflection, just as you guys are. Getting so much reflection on that. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I am sort of freaking out. It's been a hard hour with all the technical issues I've got, and there's no doubt in my mind that the stress, the irritation that I went through is cutting into my ability to paint. So I hate to do this, but I'm going to pause, and I'm going to paint here for a while without you guys. Because I'm not getting this at all. So I'm going to use these dividers and start measuring things carefully and get it straightened out. And then I'll come back in, okay? You're exactly correct. The face is not wide enough, David. And as I said, I'm just driving myself crazy now because of irritation. So again, forgive me. I'm sorry that it's been such a horrible broadcast. But if you'll grant me permission to stop and come back, that's what I'm going to do. I promise you, though, I do promise you not to cheat any more than this. When I advance to the next level of cheating, I'll let you know, okay? All right, thanks. I'll be back in a little while. Bye-bye. All right, hello gang. Whoops, let me get myself all hooked up here. Let me get my sound hooked up, sorry. All right, do we have sound? Sorry, let me triple check here. Sorry for that long break. And I'm not, okay, bear with me just a minute while I cut. All right, I'm assuming this camera is going to focus here in a second. All right, I believe I'm back. So, I finished, well, I don't know if I finished, but I did a bunch of measuring from here to here. That helped. And then I did my old trick that if you're a regular, you've seen this before, where I took a picture, a photograph of the painting, where it is right now, and a photograph of the photograph. Get it? A photograph of the picture, a picture of the picture, and a picture of the painting. Then in my gallery, I edited it by flopping it. So now I'm seeing a mirror image. Does that make sense? And in the mirror image, I can discern a lot of my mistakes. So that's a second level of cheating, if you will, okay? First level was using a measuring device And the measuring device, by the way, and here it is again. It's just a plain old-fashioned pair of a compass dividers. Now, you can do the same thing with this art tool. The big challenge here is this portrait is pretty small. If the portrait were considerably larger, if it were 3/4 or life size, these tools would help a great deal. As it is, it's almost, the portrait here is almost too small. So this helped somewhat. All right, so I've just finished examining, again, looking at first the mirror image in which I can see my mistakes better, and then check them against the corrected image and then painted them in. So that's where I am right now, and I'm going to say, I think I'm going to say that I am close enough to correct. It's not exactly correct, but of course, everything on the canvas right now is just brown and white, underpainting, right? So I have an awful lot of painting to do on top of this in color, and that will entail a lot of corrections as well. Now here's a question I have. Should I go ahead and start working on this face in color? Hang on a second. I'm seeing another thing that needs fixing in my mirror image, my reversed image here. I saw at the temples needed a little work. Yeah. Well, I think what I'm going to do, if you guys weren't watching, I think I would do this to both faces, but because you are watching, I think I'm going to go ahead and move ahead to color, at least first layer of color on this face. And for that, let me show you what I've done. I went ahead and mixed up a whole bunch of flesh tones already on my palette. See? Oh, let me show you this trick. Hang on, let's back up again. So how did I come up with these colors? This is a trick worth knowing, and this is a direct steal from Mark Carter. I've already done the work, but let me show you how I came up with this color. So I've just picked up a little bit on a palette knife. This is a laminate that has plastic on it, as you can see. And if you can this is supposed to be mid-tone face tone, and it's working because you guys probably can't see that at all. I can barely see it. So that's how I made up my original mid-tone flesh tone. And then I just made light brow. Let me show you my paints again. Then I just made, this is the color that I matched perfectly by putting it on the plastic laminated. Then I made dark, light, and blush row. Okay, so that will save me some time. Hello, Ronster G. Did it check at the bottom of the nose to the top of the lip? Thanks for saying that. Yes, I did, but that doesn't mean I can't be wrong. Let's check it again. Thank you for helping here. Let me try to get really precise. I think you're right. I think, let me double check this now, the length of the nose. According to this, yeah, no, my nose is right on. The nose is on. Now the distance between, let's do the bottom of the nose and the top of the middle of the top lip. Ooh, you're right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Not being picky. Who is that? Ronster G. Thank you, thank you. Whew. I missed that. Thank you, thank you. I would have caught it later, I promise, but that's a thanks for helping me catch it early rather than late. So that might be what's bothering me about this face. Because I could tell I wasn't on, but I couldn't figure out where yet. So thanks for your fresh eyes. By the way, not to sound defensive, but let me just explain what Ronster just did for me there. And again, now this is kind of, I'm sorry I've introduced it this way. It's going to sound like self-defense. I don't mean it that way. Let me explain, and I think you'll understand. Why was it that Ronster could see my error and I couldn't? Okay, the reason is because he had fresh eyes and I had worn out eyes. It's this thing that I call all the time, I call it portrait blindness. After so many minutes, especially if it drags on into hours, after so many minutes of working on a portrait, and it's not very many minutes, I think like about 25 or so. After so many minutes of working on your portrait, you cannot see your mistakes anymore. And that's why I was using the reverse image with the camera to help. But even so, it's still portraits and portrait blindness. A friend of mine, a fellow artist, attended a week-long class by one of the big dogs in the art, in the American portrait world. I don't want to tell you who it was because the point is not to say anything bad about him. I'll just say, I'll say it this way. It was an artist on the level, on a par with Nelson Shanks and Everett Kinstler. But it was not one of those. I think there are 3 names that fit into that category. If you know the third, then you know who I'm talking about. Doesn't matter if you don't, but just understand one of the biggest names in American portraiture. And my friend went and took a class from him, and during the course of the class, this famous portrait painter did a demo of my friend, and he was allowed to buy it for $1,200, which he did. So he brought it home and brought it to our painters group. And as soon as he put it up, I instantly saw a mistake. In fact, ironically, Ronster, it's really funny, the mistake that I saw, again, that this big name portrait was the exact one you just caught me on, bottom of the nose and top of the lip. This big name, who will remain unnamed, got it wrong. Wrong, completely wrong, obviously wrong, very obviously wrong. Well, but again, the question is, why was I able to see that and this big name portrait painter missed it? The answer is fresh eyes. I was looking with fresh eyes. Here's another story. So that was kind of encouraging in a way to find out that even the big dogs, so to speak, can mess up. By the way, this is okay, let me show you another cool trick. I'm using a curved blade. Very important that it's curved. You don't want to do this with a straight blade. I'm using a curved blade to scratch to get light back into my portrait. I'm finding that working very well today on this portrait, on this canvas. Another example I have of this portrait blindness, 7 years ago, it's hard to believe it's been that long, 2012, I decided at the beginning of the year that this was going to be my year of the portrait. I was tired of feeling intimidated by portraiture, so I was going to practice. And my goal was to do one portrait every day. Now, I missed that goal at the end of the year, but I did succeed in doing, I forget, over 200 portraits that year. Now, most of them were just quick sketches. There's still something wrong with this kid's nose. I'm not sure what it is. I think there's more of a notch taken out here. So in 2012, I made a blog, and it was called One Portrait Every Day, and I invited people to critique. So I would do, usually kind of like at the end of the day, I would do a quick sketch and then post it on the blog. And there was no cheating. That was the point. There was no cheating whatsoever. There was no nothing. Just look and scribble fast. And then I would invite people to critique what was wrong with it. I had one person named Stella, who's still a good friend, who really entered into this game with great gusto, and I appreciated it very much. And she would often give me good and accurate, always pretty much good criticism. And again, why? Is Stella a better artist than I am? She would probably say, no, not at all. And I'd probably agree with her, but be that as it may, she's certainly capable, and she certainly, caught what was wrong, so to speak, with most of my portraits right away. And the question is why? The answer is fresh eyes. All right, I'm going to stop there and start painting Yeah, I guess I will. I'm debating whether to end this broadcast and do something different, but I'll keep going. There are some people watching now. Thank you. So I'm going to be picking up then my pre-mixed colors, and I'm just going to put strokes down where I think those pre-mixed colors appear in the photograph. So what I'm doing right now is mid-tone, the original color that I mixed up and that I matched quite carefully by putting dabs on the plastic. Does it make sense? Here, let me show you that again, just in case anybody's just joined us. So zoom in here. This is a laminated photograph, and if I put this color right there, it should be invisible. You guys, I'm sure you can't even see it because I can barely see it, which means it's perfect. It's the perfect color because it's matching that color. Now, of course, it would be better if I had a better photograph than this, but I don't. I did tweak it, of course, a fair amount in Photoshop. To get, and you know, and I looked at what came off my printer and so on. And I adjusted and adjusted and adjusted till I got what I thought was a reasonable, realistic flesh tone print off my printer. Right? So there, with a pretty big brush, is a bunch of mid-tone, mid-flesh tone. Now I'm going to go one shade darker. And you'll notice that most of the strokes that I'm doing in this portrait are single stroke. Without blending the two colors together. Does that make sense? I've told this story often. I watched Mark Carder, C-A-R-D-E-R. He is also, he is a big dog portrait painter. If you'll forgive me using that term loosely, flippantly, for fun. He's a very good painter, and he's a very generous teacher on YouTube. If you haven't found Mark Carder, do yourself a favor, C-A-R-D-E-R. I will flatter myself only to the extent that thinking somebody who's watching both Mark Carder and me, even though he's a lot more big dog than I am, can get a pretty decent education. I wouldn't limit it to those two, but and some of you say, man, you are flattering yourself. Well, maybe. But anyway, I got this from him. Okay, so there's my second color. Third, I see a lot of blush coming up next. Blood row is what Frank Cavino called this. It's flesh tone with blood, closer to the surface. So, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting myself. So here we go. What Mark Carder recommends is pre-mixing your flesh tones, just the way I've done today. And putting your color down one stroke at a time without mixing the colors together. Does that make sense? I'm going to save both of those brushes because I'll be coming back to that color. And I'm going to pick up another brush, and I really want a good one. My good brushes, by the way, are Silver Grand Prix plug, putting a plug there for Silver Brush Company. My favorite American-made brushes, not counting Winsor Newton, which are English-made, right? Winsor Newton Series 7, but they are not for, those are watercolor brushes, not oil brushes, right? So here's a much lighter flesh tone. Let me see, it might be too light. All right, okay. In one of his videos, Mark Carder describes a trick, quote unquote, that he plays on his students. I'm going to back off one shade here. Let me show you my palette again, by the way. So here's my pre-mixed colors. And just so you understand, nothing says I can't mix, they can't make a color like in between those two, right? Okay? That's perfectly legal. In fact, you can mix between these as well. Do you understand? You can do all the mixing you want. This is a shortcut to get me started. I'm not limited to those shades. But the trick that Mark Carter plays by his own confession on his students, he says, all right, today you are going to do the worst portrait of your life. But you have to follow my directions. So he basically tells them to do what I'm doing here, which is mix up your colors on your palette and then put the color on the painting, on the face, and don't blend ever. Don't blend any of your colors together. Does that make sense? Which is what I'm doing right here. And of course, it's a trick because he's telling them this is going to be the worst portrait you've ever done. So they are not under pressure to do a great job because he's already told them it's going to be a terrible portrait. And it's terrible in their minds because they're not going to do any blending. If you have any experience in good portraiture at all, you're understanding already where this trick is going. I would imagine for most of the students about 85% through this experiment, they discover to their amazement that not only have they not done the worst portrait in their life, the great majority of the students have just finished the best portrait they've ever done. So what he's getting at there is good brushmanship. He's aiming for a lively, artistic brush texture. See, left to our own devices, almost all of us will do brushy, brushy, brushy. And brushy, brushy is not the way to get a good portrait. And we all know this. I mean, at least you ought to know it. Now, okay, listen. There is such a thing as William Bouguereau and Ingres, French, middle of the Jacques-Louis David, right? The French revolutionary painters I think of. Ingres, you can't even say his name in English, and so on. And there is, of course, William Bouguereau, as I said. And they're pretty good painters. Is it fair to say? Is it fair to say they're pretty good painters? I think it is. I think we'd be crazy not to admit that they're good painters. But most of us, if you've been a while on this painting and especially portrait journey, you're going, yeah, those guys are good. But then you look at, oh, now I'm forgetting the name. Well, of course, Rembrandt, the God over us all, Rembrandt, coming down just half a tiny step, John Singer Sargent, and I'm forgetting a name. One of the great early 20th century, late 19th century European, Polish maybe. I'm forgetting. I'm sorry. Northern European anyway. Anyway, what strikes us, I think most of us, when we look at then what I rather snobbishly call a real painting, as opposed to the hyper-finished Jacques-Louis David, Ingres, That's spelled Ingre, by the way, or William Bouguereau, all of whom are massively good painters. Or go even to Fragonard and Boucher. And I'm drawing a blank now. The guy that does the little pudgy babies, you know, uber famous. Anyway, when you start looking at those people, usually you go, oh wow. Youth painters were good, most of us would say, until they looked at these painterly painters. Gainsborough, Frans Hals, that's one of the biggies. Frans Hals, Dutch, early, going back a couple hundred years before those guys. Now, by the way, I am telling myself here not to panic. I don't think I need to panic, even though my portrait at the moment looks pretty funny, right? It's because I've got holes in between my brush strokes. But as far as the brush stroke, the part of the painting, the part of the face, oh, that was a misfire there, the wrong color. No panic, let's come in. The parts of the painting that I've done my single strokes on, if I have to say so myself, is looking pretty darn good. So I'm following that, you know, Mark Carter's trick. So far, I have not blended a single color into its neighbor. Now, here in a little while, I'm going to pick up a smaller brush and start really doing some detail, but I don't want to do any more detail than I have to. I better do his eyes pretty soon because they're just driving me nuts, and you nuts too. But I don't want to do that at least till I do his ears. And I am going to try to cheat the photograph just a tiny, tiny bit. I talked earlier about the what's the word? The unpleasantness of painting from a flash photograph. And one of the problems is, as you can see in the photograph here, the ears are just as bright as the front of the boy's face because it's a flash. It's just horrible, absolutely horrible. But I said earlier too, you can't start making stuff up. You just can't start saying, well, just add your own shadows. Yeah, well, that's a really good way to get in big trouble really fast. I'm mixing a dark flesh tone over here. I found that I didn't have. So I am not going to do that, with the exception of, whoops, that's too dark. With the exception of, I am going to push the ears back a little bit because I think that's a safe thing I can do. And by the way, and again, I think I want to make it clear that I do not at all consider myself a master portrait painter. Now, I what's the word? I withhold the right to become a good portrait painter. You know, I've always, what's the word? I've toyed with the idea of shifting my career away from landscape to portraiture. I've nurtured that thought for years and years and years now, and it still might happen. But in the meantime, no, I am a landscape painter at the moment, doing a portrait. So take everything I'm saying. I hope that because of that, I feel like I'm in touch with what most of you are going through in your attempts to do portraits, because it's similar to what I'm going through. Whereas some of the greats have kind of lost touch. They've forgotten what it is they've learned to get so good. I don't have that problem because I'm not that good. Does that make sense? I have to do eyes and lips now because I can't just keep going for, I'm not going to get a likeness because of what's happening there. And I didn't exactly mix up a lip color, so forgive me, I need to take a minute over here to do that. So here we go. I'll let you watch this. If I've got the right color on my brush, I won't be able to see what I just put down. But in fact, I can see it, okay? This is too chroma. It's too intense. Okay, so that's an easy fix. I have over here a little pile of color killer, which normally is, for me, is raw umber, but a little while ago I and couldn't find it. So I mixed up my own batch of color killer, which was a combination of burnt sienna and mostly ultramarine. All right, so here's attempt number 2. Ooh, that's very close. Now, it's spilled out above his lip and below his lip, but let's see. Ooh, that is very close. Let me try that again. Just putting it on just on his top lip, and okay, I'm going to pick you guys up just for a minute, just so you can get the effect of this. Bear with me while there we go. And what you're seeing is reflection. Can I do a different angle so you can see it better? Hang on, bear with me for a minute. There we go. All right, now I think you can't see that color right there, because I can barely see it myself. All right, so that's Mark Carter trick. Now all that gives me is, it's not all of his lips, of course. It's just the main, what I call the mid-tone, main color of his lips. Does that make sense? So I'm going to put this, again, single stroke, wherever I see this, what I'm calling the main color in his lips. I'm not going to put it where where it's lighter or darker than this. I'm just going to put it where it's this particular color. Okay? Now I'm going to add some titanium white to that. Now it's possible I might decide to add I actually am, add a tiny bit of Naples yellow. Naples yellow, it's a go-to, it's a regular color for me. It's like yellow ochre, but lighter. So it's pale yellow ochre. All right, I can check over here and see if it's the right color. It's actually a little bit light, so let me. But isn't that a cool trick? By the way, a year or two ago, I purchased a laminator at the office supply. Look how I'm holding the brush here. Can you believe it? I swear at people who hold brushes this way. A couple years ago, I bought a laminating machine, and my goodness, has that turned out to be a good investment. I use it way more than I thought I would. So just for what it's worth. Put in a plug for a tool that has really helped me. Not very expensive. You have to, keep ordering or going back to the store to buy the laminating sheets. They come in different sizes and different thicknesses and so forth. But again, I learned this trick from Mark Carter, and if you don't want to buy a laminating machine, then you have to run down to your local office supply store and have them do it for you, which sounds like quite a hassle to me. So anyway, just for what it's worth, as a full-time artist, I have found that a laminating machine has been well worth the investment. All right, highlight on lip, bottom lip. Hello. Now that mouth is almost done, just as is. Not quite. Aren't you glad I said almost? I'm going to pick up, and again, boy, look at how I'm holding the brush. I mean, talk about you people, if you're new, I usually scoff and scorn and shake my fist at tongue painting of any kind. You know what tongue painting is, right? That's tongue painting, right? Hey, Dolly. Again, the name of my book/video series is The Breakable Laws of Painting. Every law can be broken, so there is a time for tongue painting. And folks, this is it. This be it. It's also time for a maul stick. So I'm looking, no, I don't want this, see, I don't want this dark brown here in his lip. I want it to be dark, dull red. So I just mixed up just a minute ago a dark, dull red to get the crack in between his lips. And I'm using the best brush in the world. I said a while ago that it wasn't for oil painting, it's for watercolor. I should have said, oh, unless you're doing extreme detail in oil. It's a red sable brush, again, Winsor Newton Series 7. All right, that's getting close. I'm gonna clean that brush. I don't want it sitting, it's got a little bit of liquid in it. I don't want it even drying a little bit on that good brush. So I need to carve into that. Oh, let me go ahead and do it right now. I'll show what do I mean by carving into it. So I picked up this opaque flesh tone. I'm going to thin up that far extension of his mouth. Whoops, I just cut in too much. Welcome to the wild and wonderful world of portraiture. Not only that, now that I'm looking at, I don't think I nailed the color right on those lips. How did that happen? I don't know. Who cares? So I'm adding orange, by the way, straight up orange. I don't know what kind of orange, but I think his lips need to be more orange. And again, trying not to blend, brushy, but no brushy. Just put the stroke down and leave it. Don't move it around and brush it. Don't blend it in with the color next to it. That's one of the secrets of some of those great masters I was talking about a while ago. The Frans Hals and those guys. They did not blend their brush strokes. They just let the stroke be. Just let it breathe, let it show off, let it... A corollary to that would be in watercolor. I've got now a lighter color on my brush. Oops, and that's too light. Oh, let's back off from that. In watercolor painting, when you're a kid, I don't know how many of you did watercolor paintings as a kid. You know, you put down one brush stroke and then you come back and do another brush stroke overlapping the first one, and you get lines where the two strokes ended, right? You could see your strokes. And as a kid, that used to irritate the fire to me, and I'd work so hard to try to smooth out and blend those strokes so that you couldn't see them. And then years and years later, finally figured out, oh, that seeing those strokes was in fact part of the beauty of watercolor. That's how the great colorists call it paint, is you can see their strokes. At least now there, again, I'm giving you my 2 cents worth, because there are plenty of amazing good watercolor painters who are hyper realists. So again, I'm tipping my hand and telling you my prejudice toward what I horribly snobbishly call real painting. Real painting is the stuff that's hard to do because it's not realism. All right, now, woo, his eyes are really driving me crazy now. So let's go in. Let me tell you, now, I don't know that it's going to work, but I'll tell you that what I'm going to try to do with his eyes, again, because they're fairly small, right? Small painting, irritatingly small painting. David says the front part of his nose is too wide. You may probably correct, David. Thank you. Thank you. This is a principle. I'm wide out so you can see me a little bit. I've learned the hard way. Oil portraits. Paint from back to front. That is, paint objects that are farther away first, and then paint objects that are up close second. Now, what do I mean by an object? When it comes to portraiture, we're talking microns. In other words, how do you paint a crease in the skin? The answer is you paint the crease because it's further away. And then you paint the skin, the folds of skin that are on above and below the crease, or beside the crease, second. That's what I'm going to do with the eyes here. I'm going to do the whites of the eyes because they're the furthest away, maybe even the corners first. And then as I come forward, so I'm going to whites, iris, no, pupil, iris, then reflection, then eyelashes last. Does that make sense? Anyway, and I did not mix up a color for the quote-unquote whites of his eyes. By the way, be careful about that expression, whites of the eyes, because that expression alone can really mess you up, because the word is white, and because of that, if you're not careful, you'll make the eyes too white because of that word. And that's right there, that's way too white. So let's darken that down quite a bit. Now, I did add just a tiny, tiny bit of ultramarine to this mixture right here to make it slightly grayer. Nope, I'm still too bright. Still too light. I'm gonna add a little bit more ultramarine. Again, just a tiny bit to gray down this color. Okay, let's try this. trying to see if it fits anywhere. The answer is no. Now here's a question for you. Is it all right to bump up the white of those eyes a little bit? And man, well, first of all, I know what Mark Carter would say. He would say, heck no. At least I think that's what he would say. I'm going to differ with him ever so slightly, only because I feel like this is a bad photograph. Does that make sense? So I get the feeling when I look at this that the whites of his eyes should be lighter than they are, but it's simply a high quality photograph, so it makes it the whites darker. So I am going to take the liberty of lightening them up slightly. But so far, every time I've tested my color, I've still been too light. There we go. That's close enough. All right. So here we go. I'm going to look at the shape. This is where doing a portrait this size is just nuts. Just nuts. These the angles of this triangle, right? There's 4 triangles here, two in each eye, one in the corner of each eye, and the angles of that portrait are frightfully important. Get them off by less than 1/100 of an inch, and it will affect. The boy won't look like he'll be cross-eyed or cockeyed or looking to the left or looking to the right, or he'll look drowsy or he'll look alarmed. It's really hard to get it exactly right at this size. This is where it would be much easier to do a larger portrait. Okay, I'm going to stop there for now, and I don't think I need this color right now, so I'm going to clean this brush. So the next thing I'm going to do is the pupil. Oh, you know what I don't have? And I really would like, and I'm going to alarm some of you by this, I would like some black paint. And I have Prussian blue. I'm afraid I would have to look for quite a while in here to see if I've got any black. No. Okay, tell you what, so I'm not going to drive you crazy. I will drive you crazy just by putting Prussian blue out, by the way, which most of what we get is Prussian blue nowadays. Let me look at this. This is Michael Harding, excellent quality paint. And pigment. He doesn't have a pigment number. How can he do that? It says pigment, organic, oil content, high, transparent, drying very fast, lightness very good, blah, blah, blah. But it should say pigment number. Maybe it's on the front. Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, there we go. Pigment blue 27, ferric ammonium ferrocyanide. How about that? So it looks to me, I know that some of you don't, I'm sorry, I should have this. It looks to me, I think that's PB, that is pigment blue 27, ferric ammonium ferrocyanide, ground in linseed oil. Huh. That would mean if there's only one pigment number, what I am trying to tell you, if there is only one pigment number, then that means it's true Prussian blue. I was going to say most Prussian blue that we get in most brands is artificial Prussian blue. It's some blue plus some black pigment. So I don't know if Prussian blue is toxic. Somebody let me know. I don't think it is. I try not to buy toxic at all. It says conforms to something. ASTMD 4236. Keep out of reach of children. that up, or somebody look it up for me, is Prussian blue. It's a color I rarely buy. Anyway, I mixed it with some oxide red to create very close to a black. So there's the pupil of the boy's eyes. And again, I'm having to tell myself, don't panic. Don't panic yet. Panic later. It's too early to panic. Panic comes later. Don't panic because we are not finished with this with the cracks in his face, okay? I haven't even covered the whole thing yet. All right, I'm mixing up a very brownish gray with just a hint of greens. Again, looking at the photograph, I'm guessing that this boy had greenish eyes. Boy, I hope I'm correct. And quite a dull, quite a dark. Resist the temptation to make the eyes, bright blue or bright brown or anything. Let me test this color. No, I can actually go quite a bit lighter. Okay, that's good news. That's easy to do. What a great trick, eh? That Mark Carter shared with us all. This laminate the painting, laminate the photograph, and then you put paint right on the plastic lamination, right on the plastic to check your color. Mark has a whole bunch of other tricks for matching color. This is just one of them. All right, so next.
I'll go ahead and get my tags and my top.
Okay, I'm going to clean that brush. Again, I'm using a Winsor Newton Series 7, finest brush you can buy, and this is a number 1. Now back to my black that I had mixed up. Prussian blue and oxide red. I'm going to add a little bit of violet to that, by the way. This one, there we go. And now let's do eyelashes. Now, I'll probably finish this painting tomorrow. A separate broadcast, and I'll talk about making corrections, because there's a very decent chance that I'll have to make significant corrections on everything here. I don't mean that I'll have to correct everything. There's a decent chance that many of the features will need to be shifted somewhat. And I'll talk then about how you'll go about making those shifts. There is a trick. to moving. Like let's say I find out the eye, the mouth, the nose, eye. Like right now, they don't look like they're lining up. So, you know, I'll correct that. There is a trick to moving features, and it's not quite as painful as you would at first think. You know, there's usually, when you realize especially if you feel like you've accomplished the feature perfectly, like, oh, that eye is perfect. Unfortunately, it's 1/100 of an inch too low or too high or too left or too right, right? That's painful, but it's not really as painful as you would think. Again, look at this, what I'm doing. This is classic tongue painting, I tell you. David says my nose is too wide, and I suspect that that is correct. Oh, especially over on this side, yeah, definitely. On his left, our right. Should be an easy fix. The line under his nose is entirely too dark. I just haven't gotten around. I haven't mixed up or picked up the dark red, dark brownish red to do that. I'll do that here in a minute. I go back to his. I'm afraid that when I did the whites of his eyes, believe it or not, I was a little bit too conservative, and I didn't go down far enough. Here we go. And I didn't go up far enough. Here, one thing you do want to avoid is a black outline around the eyes. Phew. That's a bad thing. Okay, now mid-tone flesh, mid-flesh tone is the color of this top eyelash. Eyelid, I don't mean eyelash, eyelid. A lost edge, an occasional lost edge, is a really good thing generally when painting eyes. I can put that tiny brush down. Let's go back up a little bit and do some real painting for a few minutes. Okay? So real. In fact, I'm going to do it with my left hand, holding the brush in the right way. So I'm looking now at slightly darker tones. I've got a medium dark on my brush. Ooh, now it's time for a little bit of blood row. Again, that's it. Because my paintings are in rows, right? I have a flesh row, light to dark, and then a blood row, light to dark. That's Frank Cavino language. I still have somewhere a whole set of Frank Cavino colors that I mixed up years ago, and I think they're still good. I mixed up a bunch of colors and put them in tubes, following Frank Cavino's instructions. There's a line in the upper right side of this eye that shouldn't be there.
You might have to get off of it. And then
Yep, I need to do the white of that eye again. Move it up a little bit so that line disappears. And now it's disappeared too much. Welcome to painting. So I've got to reintroduce that line. But it was too dark anyway, so it's just as well. So I mixed up medium, medium dark reddish brown. All right, I fear that I am just boring you guys to smithereens. Well, hello, Nancy Smitherman. Thank you so much for a $2 super chat. I appreciate that very much. Rabid Dog says, and David also still helping. His hair crown is more to the right. It is. Okay, I'll probably do it. I'm not sure, David, that isn't camera distortion, even though I tried in Photoshop to undo the distortion that was there. I'm gonna have to put all of y'all's David signature, especially at the bottom of this painting, for all my helpers. I'm going to go ahead and mark and do something about that right now, Dave, because I think you're probably right. But I'm afraid that I'll forget if I don't do it now, so just a tiny bit. All right, as I said, I just fear this is so finicky. There's all kinds of stuff I haven't done here. But I honestly don't want to just paint till everybody is dead. We're losing viewers here. Actually, we're not. Okay, I'll keep going a little while, but I'm just letting you know I don't obligate myself to, to continue painting forever, because I am aware of it just getting boring. Okay, let's do something about his awful eyebrows right now that are way too dark, because it's just underpainting still showing through. So I've got a medium dark yellowish brown, orangish brown, because his eyebrows here seem to have a lot of orange in them. There's so many weaknesses about painting from a photograph, especially, as I've said several times today, especially a flash photograph. And of course, so what you've seen me do so far since I started the color is essentially the first layer of color without blending. That doesn't mean that I can't come, as I'm doing now, and make refinements like, oh, that area should be, like the triangle between his nose needs to be lighter, a lighter value than I had. So of course I put that down. But again, I don't blend scrubby, scrubby, scrubby. Now I've got a real dark edge right there that does not need to be there. So that right there. Again, there's a lot of orange in this part of his face. I am mixing up a more intense pink, orange pink, than I did earlier. I'm finding the blush on his cheek right here is not quite as intense as it could be. Same thing over here. Thank you for your chats. Up the bracket. Thank you for chatting. I haven't seen your name before. Thank you. And thank you for the compliment. And oh, good. Up the bracket. Good. Going to start doing some abstract. Good for you. And Bet Rabbit Dog, thank you that you find it not too boring. Okay, I've got a dark smudge right here on his cheek simply because it's a crack between previous strokes, and the color is just about my mid-tone flesh tone. Up the bracket. I enjoy teaching abstract painting very much. It has been a while since I've done it, over a year. So I'm just about due for another round of abstract paintings. I do enjoy teaching it. The color was too light, so it makes something darker. So at the moment, this is actually quite fun. Again, I'm sticking with the, I'll call it the Mark Carter trick. Don't blend any strokes, just put it down and leave it there. And of course, that doesn't mean you can't come back and put another color on top of it. But again, the color that you put on top, you don't blend that either. Now, his top lip needs a lot of work. My paint's getting a little dry, actually. The principle I was talking a while ago about painting in portraits from far away to close. A corollary to that, yes, in fact, does mean that pretty much the final touches you put on a photograph, on a portrait, are the white highlights that are closest to the viewer. Now, that's especially true when you're working from a flash photograph like this, which is not at all advantageous. I don't know if you caught that earlier. You do not want to work from flash photography. You do not want to work from flash photographs. But sometimes that's all you've got to work with. Let's get away from the right-handed stuff.
I want to go outside. It's fun.
This painting is not going to be done alla prima, I don't think. Well, I haven't even started the second face, so yeah, that goes without saying. The point is, even the face I'm working on will be worked on again tomorrow. If that's the case, I will probably broadcast Now tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm painting an event, live event, being paid for it. So tomorrow will be partly taken up with making sure all my ducks are in a row for Wednesday. But I should be able to squeeze in some painting tomorrow. I certainly hope so. And if so, I will continue this and or another painting. Whoops. There's where alla prima doesn't work. I did a stroke right there that all it did mainly is take off a layer of paint that I had put on earlier. All right, let's tackle the bottom of his nose here. I've let that go long enough. I have over here a pile of dark brown, and I just need to add some red to it. Let's see if this is the right color. I think it is. Again, back to tongue painting, as you can see, and that's way too dark. So let's mix up something considerably lighter than that. And lighter again. So again, part of the mindset, the thinking here, is I have a dark shadow under his nose, right? And then very light on the area above his top lip. But I want that shadow to be soft, not razor sharp. So the amateurish impulse, I'll put it that way, would be to brushy, would be to put down the dark color, then put down the light color, and then blend the boundary between them. And forgive me for calling it amateurish if that's the way your teacher taught you how to do it. But again, subscribing to the school of painting, championed by Rembrandt et al. And so on, et al. That's the wrong impulse. You don't want to paint that way. You want to put down a color and blend it by putting down a lighter color next to it, and let the seam continue to show. It can be a very subtle seam, like where the two colors come together. It can be very, very subtle. But let the seam remain visible instead of, again, following what I would call the amateurish impulse to scrub, to scumble, to blend those two colors. Okay? I'm probably beating that horse to death here today. All right, it's starting to look like a little boy. You know what? Daniel Green, when I took a class from him 100 years ago, I just remembered a trick that he used to do, and I'm not used to doing it, so I hope I don't ruin this painting. He would take a mop, and I'm looking here for a mop brush. Okay, that's not a mop. Here, oh my goodness, I've got a mop, but it's dirty. All right, here's a mop brush. He would take it and drag it very gently. Well, that didn't work at all. That was a mild disaster. Huh. I'll fix it. But okay, the reason for that was not to blend colors together, but was in fact to smooth out brush strokes. Turns out it didn't work for me at all. So much for that experiment, because it picked up the black of his eyelashes and just smeared it across his up to his eyebrow. I need to go back to Daniel Green for it. Run that by me again. I think probably that I just have too many layers of paint on this. Same thing happened down here. Easy fix, not a disaster, but didn't work real well. A little bit of orange. One of the disadvantages also of painting from a photograph, and I don't want to sound like a broken record here, and here I'm not talking about flash photograph in general, is that the camera cannot pick up subtleties of color that your eye can't. So when you're painting from life, your eye can see all the subtle shades that are in this face, the greens, the blues, the yellows, the purples, and so forth. But when I'm working from this photograph, all I'm getting is probably, and you're even getting less than I am, all I'm getting there is muted mid flesh tones. And I know from experience that in real life there would have been more than that, but I'm going to be pretty cautious about about going crazy and adding my own. I probably, by the way, no guarantee, but I probably will actually introduce a little bit of that way near the end of the painting process. I will introduce non-flesh tones. Now, unfortunately, they'll all be made up. They'll be completely invented, which is very dangerous. So I'm going to be rather cautious. I'm not going to go crazy with it, but it will probably lend a significant air of believability, or it will look slightly less like a portrait done from a photo. All right, lost you for a minute there. So back in 2012, when I did the year of the portrait, and the rules were you could comment on you could critique my paintings, my sketches. Most of them were sketches. But since we're working on a two-dimensional surface, flat surface, the only thing, this is important. For you artists, the only thing you can say is you can designate a thing, a spot, a bit on the canvas. And you have to say, that spot, that bit, that line, that curve, that dot, that point, whatever, needs to move left, right, or up or down. That's all you can move. You can move this way. So you can't say things like, and I'm not really picking on you, either of you, but you cannot say, the face doesn't look round enough, or the child looks too old. I mean, you could say that, but oh, okay, hang on. Is the sound good now? Whoops, hang on, David. And all of you, I think my sound is good. We lost it for a minute. All you can say as an artist is that thing, that spot needs to go up, down, left, right, or some combination thereof, right? So you can't say, the face looks a little too round. And again, I'm not really picking on you, and I didn't give you the rules ahead of time, if there are any. But as an artist, that is what you have to do. And that's what you get from non-artists, by the way. That is what you get from non-artists. Oh, his nose, a little bit more like a Dan Nelson painting. And do some pencil in it. How about that? I have done this before, by the way, in my wedding portraits. I've had the nerve to introduce pencil. Okay, so for you artists, that is the rule from this point on. And I'm saying that for my benefit and yours both. Uncle Mark is coming?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, what fun.
Oh, you all here so.
His eyes look terrible.
Wait, are you doing sleep?
His eyes look terrible. That is not a good. Hey, John.
Are you doing sleep pill? Are you doing sleep pill?
Am I doing this?
Are you going to sleep here?
Sleep here? No.
Then where are you doing?
Then where are you going to sleep then?
At Brooklyn. Where Uncle Mark is going to sleep.
Oh, really? You both going to sleep there? Oh, what fun.
Why are you
Sleepover.
going to sleep in that smushy bed? Like smush?
Yeah, kind of, yes.
Okay.
Actually, I've been on the floor.
As you can tell, the house is filling up with company, so I'll stop broadcasting you shortly.
Yeah, he sleeps on
Are you
the.
broadcasting right
Yeah.
I'm so
But that's right. They know real people live here.
now? Is it muted?
No. We're talking to them right now as we speak. All right. All I will say about that is it's close enough for a first day. Half a day of painting. Needs work. Fortunately, I have time tomorrow to paint some more. So I don't know if you caught that rule or not. The rule is you can say this or that line, which is usually in a face. It's a curve, we understand that. But you say it has to move up, down, left, or right. I'm really not picking on you, but since we're doing this together, I will make you talk like an artist. The good news is, if there is good news here, and by the way, I just noticed. I'm sorry. Let me do this. The blush in his lips is not bright enough. Once again, I've already done this once. Let's do it again. The good news is I have a likeness that you can certainly tell, I believe. You can tell who this kid's supposed to be. I have a likeness. The question is, do I have a perfect likeness? And the answer to that is no.
I might have to go get my shoes.
I have what I would call an amateur likeness. I'm not picking on any of you amateurs. An amateur likeness is, yeah, you can tell who it is, but there's something a little off with the blank, whatever the blank may be. Back to horrible tongue painting here. I know one of the things that's happening here is the top of his lip, the peak of his bottom of his top lip, the peak of his top lip is too dark, so that the boundary between his lip and the rest of his flesh tone is too pronounced. Crazy things like that make a difference. There we go. That's better. Let me zoom back in so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Wet control. That's a good expression there, David. The line under his nose is still too dark and comes to too abrupt of an end at the bottom. So I'm doing a kind of a rust brown, a light burnt umber edge. And now that I've done that, now it's too wide. Okay, but it's an improvement. Now I'm going to pick up my flesh tone brush again. I'm not sure this is the right color, and then carve into that shadow again to make it as thin as it's supposed to be. Oh my, okay. Oh, his nose is perfectly flat, which is wrong, of course. In my painting, his nose is lamentably flat. So let's fix that before we go. And all this crease over here is way too intense. Okay, here's another Mark Carterism. The number one mistake, and I'm probably falling into it right now, so I'll fix it before I'm done. The number one mistake, he says, by amateur artists, well, I'm not an amateur artist, but amateur artists and lousy professionals is too much contrast, too hard of an edge. I know that, forgive the bad grammar. I'm just trying to say it in a way that you can understand what I'm saying. Edge is too hard and contrast too strong in a portrait. And I strongly sense that I am falling into that trap right at the moment. So either tonight, in which case I will not broadcast probably, either tonight or tomorrow when I come back, I'll try to rectify that grievous error. The error is too much contrast and too hard of an edge. Portraits should be primarily soft. Not hard. Right now I've got way too much hardness going on here. Same thing, the bottom of his bottom lip. So let's go back to that. Let's go back to that lip color again, orange red. And get rid of this little line right here. It's an artifact of the underpainting still showing through.
Don't tell my
And there we go.
because I need to potty. I'm not going to play.
I'm going to go back to the whites of his eyes, which of course are not white. We talked about that quite a bit. But I did get them. I think I can make them slightly lighter than they are right now. It should be nice. There, he looks a little dark-eyed. He looks a little goth. And this little kid is not supposed to be at all goth. Let's put a little sparkle in his eye, and then I'm going to call it a day, okay? Oh, too much of a sparkle. Rats. So I give myself about a B so far on this portrait. I keep doing the sparkle too big. All right, and maybe not even a B. I don't know. I look at it. Maybe a B minus. All right, cut me some grace. Give me a B minus. So tomorrow, sometime between today and tomorrow, I have to raise this from B to an A. Okay? And tomorrow, of course, if I wait till tomorrow morning, I'll see it with fresh eyes. All right, let me see what all you guys have been talking about while I've been somewhat ignoring you. Uncle 60, I gave you that rule 2 months ago and you forgot. Thanks. David says you have too thick of a paint if you make mud. That's correct. Nancy, not offended at all, my dear. Whoops, wait a minute. There we go. Sorry about that. Not offended at all, my dear. No. No, I'm picking on you, saying, since we're all artists here, we're going to talk like an artist. I didn't give you the rule ahead of time. So you say left, right, up, down, of course, or change color, lighter, darker, of course. But no, thank you. You, please, you're not corrected. You're perfectly fine. And David talks about in the first layer we used to add some green. Yes, that is the William Bouguereau green underpainting. I don't know. There's more than one way to do it, but yes, that certainly is the Bouguereau approach. Green underneath and color on top. And I did not do that here, of course. The photo has poor lighting. Yes. Uncle 60, did you catch? Yes, it is a horrible photograph. If these boys were still this age, I would tell their mama to take another picture. But the problem is the picture was taken 20 or 25 years ago, so these boys are grown up, so we don't have that option. Yes, it's flash photography is the culprit. Flash photography is horrible to paint from, but what can you do? That's all I can do. You know what? I think there's too much distance now between his nose is too high. Doggone it. I'm going to pick up a pencil. I thought I was all done, and I am. But let me fix something here real quick. I looked at it with fresh eyes just a second ago. That's better, I think. Again, this is crazy to use a pencil in a portrait like this. Please do not tell anybody that that's what I'm doing. I'll never live it down. On the other hand, I will stand by the portrait when it's finished. I will not stand by it. I will not defend it until it's finished. All right, thanks, gang. All right, starting your new oil, your new eagle. Good for you. Yeah, or is the mouth too low? Ooh, no, you might be right. Oh, doggone it. Maybe the mouth is too, anyway. No, hang on. I keep saying I'm done. No, his chin got short, I think. One thing leads to another. Oh boy, I'm in trouble now, aren't I? And can he quit? Can he quit? I don't know if I can or not. I need a little upturn. Need a little upturn. Do you hear the natives getting restless here? Oh, that is horrible. What I just did looked like a mustache on the Mona Lisa.
No, I need things to play. I want to play by myself.
All right, I can't wait to get at this tomorrow and fix all the many mistakes that are on it. It will be dry, and I should be able to do a lot of painting on it without making mud. Will he quit or will he not? Yes, he will. Thanks. Bye.